All right, so let's talk about the favored parent now and some things we might look for in the favored parent. One of the first things that I try to assess in my interviews, and I do a lot of individual interviews, and I go back to family of origin stuff. So in my assessments, I don't just ask what's going on now. I ask about the complete history of the relationship, and then I ask about their childhood and their family of origin, because what we've found is that disrupted patterns of relationships are passed on from generation to generation. And so we'll look specifically at divorce, death, abandonment, substance abuse. What was their relationship with each of their parents? Did one of their parents disappear? Were they enmeshed with one of their parents? A lot of times you'll see this because the grandmother or the grandfather comes into the lawyer's office with the parent, comes into the counselor's office with the parent, brings the children. You know that they are heavily involved if they are still helping the parent to that extent. And those are important signs in assessment. These are the 17 behaviors that we looked at in detail in the spring. Okay, I'm not going to go through them all. What I want to say about these behaviors is that it is not so much how many behaviors are engaged in. It is more important about the intensity and the frequency of the behavior. It could be one or two of these done repeated all the time. It could be more, a handful. Anybody have any questions just about these? What
is TP example?
Oh, a targeted parent.
Dr. Baker, for those of us who weren't able to make it in the spring, would it be possible to get your PowerPoint for the spring presentation?
You bet. You bet. Just if you'll give your name and email address to Angel, she can get it too.
Great.
Okay, yeah, you're welcome. Co-parenting beliefs and behaviors. So one piece of an assessment when I always look at is what are your attitudes about co-parenting. And then beyond that, I look at what are your behaviors, right? Oftentimes, a favored parent they are wonderful at saying all the right things. I really want her to have a great relationship with her dad because I had one with mine or because I didn't have one with mine. And I have a colleague, and we always keep each other on point with this and remind each other, do not listen to the words. They're somewhat important. Look at the behaviors. So have they put the other parent on as an emergency contact? Have they even listed the other parent as mother or father on the school or medical records? Do they have, this is more of a nonverbal, the minimization and devaluing. You'll get this, when you ask them about the importance of the other parent, you'll get just a dismissal of them in a way, like, oh, he really doesn't know anything about that. I've always handled education. He doesn't show up, or he doesn't know how to look at the school website. There's just this condensation that goes on, condescending attitude that goes on. Relationship patterns with the child as well as with their parents. These are things that we look at because, again, these are the patterns that get passed down. Is there a child who's acting as a best friend? Do they describe their relationship with their child as being that they're best friends? Is a child taking care of a sick parent? Is there a parent that really can't get out of bed very often, or can't get home to school, or can't get the younger kids out of bed? And is there an older child functioning more in an adult role than in a child role? Also, is there an adolescent who's been overly empowered, who has tons of freedom and very little monitoring? And we're going to look at their behavior during transitions. Are they overly emotional when the child goes to the other house? Is there a lot of clinging and crying and anxiety? Or are there a lot of warning messages? Now you be sure that you watch and make sure that she's not leaving you at night. Remember, she used to do that when you were a baby. She would leave you in your crib. You need to stay alert and call me if you have any concerns. So there's this, sending the child with these anxieties that the parent's not going to take good care of them. So this is what we see in a normal family hierarchy. We have two parents who are running the show and a child who's following suit and working together. In an alienation hierarchy, we might have it two different ways. We might have a parent aligned with a child, both of them in kind of an adult role, who have cast the other parent in a light of not being qualified or adequate to be an equal parent or to set the rules. In another formation, we have a child telling both parents what to do. And I'll talk about this later. This is a good place to say, this is one of the places where strong containment from the court can be immediately reparative, because the court and the judge and the court order takes over the authority of the parent for a little while. They become super parent until we can get them back functioning in the right way. I'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll also look at abuse allegations. I don't take those lightly. I will be honest with you, I see more false allegations doing this work than I do substantiated allegations. However, I don't want to miss it if it's real. And so I'll take a detailed history of the abuse. Has it been going on for a long time? Do the stories make sense? Is there enough detail to the stories? Or is it more recent? Going into the second bullet, is it situational violence versus domestic violence? Did the marriage completely fall apart over the last year and people had really bad communication skills, terrible anger management skills, and they got into some really heated arguments before they finally decided to go separate ways? Somebody broke somebody's phone, somebody got pushed, somebody slammed a door and it broke the doorknob, as opposed to a domestic violence pattern, which is more about control and creating dependency and lowering self-esteem. Those are some of the differences that I look for. And when I hear abuse allegations, I look at all the evidence and documentation that can be provided, understanding that sometimes people who have been abused don't go forward. I get that. So exposure to the child, this is another one. Was the violence between the parents something that was strictly between them, or was the child exposed to that? That's a criteria that's important. And are there any witnesses? And if so, is it what they heard a parent tell them, or is it what they observed themselves? Okay, so a recap for the favored parent. We're going to look at family of origin, behaviors that interfere in the child's relationship with the other parent, co-parenting behaviors and attitudes to a lesser degree, relationship patterns with the child. Are they enmeshed? Are they giving the child too much authority? And abuse allegations. And then we'll also look at their behavior on the transition